She is an inspiration in sports media. Danielle Cranin, you can, of course, see her work with NBC Sports Group, director currently content integration and partnerships, working in the gambling space, but has also worked with the USTA, senior manager of broadcasting, many years with ESPN as well. And this is the On to Something podcast. Clearly, Danielle is on to something, and so she deserves some recognition for what she is doing behind the scenes. I'm Bryan Fenley, a national anchor at Fox Sports Radio, USTA commentator, volleyball, and other ventures as well. Danielle, and looking at your sporting past and you as an athlete, what made you such a good field hockey player?
Oh, it's a great question. And I know you're going to start with field hockey. I was a field hockey goalie. And a trick I picked up very early on. One, I didn't like to run a lot. So when our varsity goalie went down, our coach was like, oh, who wants to step up? And I was like, I'll give it a shot. But I can see the whole field, and I think it's translated a lot into, where I've gone in my career. But being able to sort of block out everything in my periphery and sort of just focus on the field that was in front of me, and watching patterns and movements of the 10 other teammates I had in the other team. I had a pretty good goalie career. It was a lot easy for me. It was really easy for me to anticipate where the ball was going to go, and seeing patterns form in play formation in front of me. And I don't know, I just excelled at it. It was easy for me to sort of see the whole field at one time. That it was a good position for me.
And having that mindset has led to you being in a good position to succeed post playing days now in the sports space as an executive. And while you were at Quinnipiac, and I saw you wrote a lot of neat articles, sports related.
Yeah.
And there was one where you talked about how sports has played a role in recovery. And this was, right after 9/11 and all of that. But personally for you, Danielle, how has being around sports, how has that been therapeutic and cathartic for you, even healing?
Yeah, I think sports, people forget the, old, reality television, right? Like everyone's like, oh, was it The Amazing Race, Big Brother? You can talk about, Jersey Shore shows on MTV. Like everyone's like, oh, reality television, like that's the craze. Like sports is the ultimate reality television, right? So we get a chance every night to watch outcomes. And it's interesting to me. Quinnipiac was a great school. I was lucky to go there. It set me up to succeed, being close to ESPN, where I was able to intern while I was still at school. And, ultimately I parlayed that into my first full-time role. But sports really, it's interesting for me because when I would be around my friends who went to big schools, like, I had a friend who went to Michigan, I had a friend who went to Notre Dame, I didn't have a big time football school to root for. And I would watch my friends just live and die by college football, college basketball. And it's a way to like bring groups of people together. It's a way to bring families together. It's a way to forget about stressors of the rest of your life, right? Like whether it's your job or your family or finances, whatever it is, like sports gives you that escapism for however long the game is that you're watching. And, after 9/11, my father was in the city on that day. Couldn't find him for, oh my goodness, it must have been 12 hours. And to see like that first baseball game come back, that first NFL game come back, it just sort of gave you something to just be happy about, right? And for me, sports has always been that. It's been, when my friends and I talk about like, oh, what are you binge watching now? And I'm like, binge watching? I don't have time to do that. Like there's however many games on every single night of the week. They're like, well, you haven't watched Ted Lasso yet? And I'm like, no, I have watched that, but it's sports related. So, for me, sports is just, it's something that's always there. It's comforting. You never really have to, worry about following character, development and things of that nature. Like when I watch the Yankees, I know who my announcers are. I know the team that's on the field. It's comforting, right? It's something that's easy to put on TV and for 3 hours that I'm going to be at home with watching my team win, lose or draw. Like I get to see something that I like to see day in and day out. So, and I think that's it's helpful for some people. I think that's, especially in the crazy times we've had in the last 2 years, like sports returning and coming back on air during this pandemic. It's been a bright spot. And I think you see that in the ratings. I think you see that in the endemics, right? Like sales of all sporting equipment is up. So it's proof that this industry is still extremely vital and viable for everything that we're doing, candidly.
Danielle Cranin is with us on the Onto Something podcast. I'm Bryan Fenley with Fox Sports Radio. So what does your drive and determination look like, Danielle, and how you've clung to that as to explain your career trajectory?
Oh, wow. My drive, I mean, I'm my own biggest critic. And I think it doesn't matter what company I'm with. It doesn't matter who my boss is. If I have a set of goals that are presented for myself, there's going to be nobody tougher on myself than me. So it's been easy. I shouldn't say easy. It's been a fun journey for me. When I sit down, everyone has their to-do lists, or everyone has, here's what I need to accomplish this week, this month, this quarter, whatever. The goals are set forth for them. And for me, it's like, it's a little game, right? It's back to my playing days. Like, can I do this? Can I get through my to-do list before 2:00? Can I get through my to-do list before the end of the week? Can I go above and beyond, do the under promise, over deliver kind of thing. And I just know that I'm going to be harder on myself than anyone else. So when criticism comes, it's nothing I hadn't already thought of, right? It's something that I hadn't already, chided myself for doing. And it just fuels me to continue on and to do better, and innovate and try to find, new ways to do things. I think you see throughout my career, I don't know if you're going to go there, Bryan, but I started in programming acquisitions, and then I transitioned into a production role, and now I'm into sports betting. So I've done 3 very distinctively different and unique things in our industry. And it allows you to not get stale, and it allows you to challenge yourself and to continue to not get bored with yourself, right? Like it's a way for me to continue to be sharp and push myself to learn more, read more, understand more of our business, because it's constantly evolving. So yeah.
Where do you find the roots of that thirst for wanting to learn and to never being satisfied? Where do you think that came from, and where you first noticed it at an early age?
I mean, I always played sports. So it could have came from there. I mean, I have 2 great parents. My mom's special education teacher. She's retired. Both my parents are retired. And I watched what my mom did with these kids who sometimes don't even know you're in the room. And, she takes a special person to do that. Right. And my dad, he was in information technology, and, again, another field where you kind of have to be on the cutting edge. You kind of always have to be reading and making yourself an expert in your field, because if you don't continue to read and learn, then you're going to get surpassed. And just watching what they, I had 2 working parents, I didn't have a daycare, if you will. Like, I went and played sports. Like, there was after school specials, after school activities, and I was playing kickball, and I was playing baseball with the boys, and I was, playing sports. And it was, constantly, come home and what's the report card of the day? Like, what did you do today? Where did you get an A today? Where did you excel? My parents, chose to limit the amount of screen time my sister and I had, and we were allowed to read as many books as we wanted, but there was only a finite number of hours of TV that we could watch. Maybe that's where I got my programming background. Like, here's a TV guide. I had to pick out what shows I was going to watch. My mom had to initial it. So, you're already planning ahead. Like, what was I going to watch for, these 2 hours each day? So it was just this constant, always trying to be better, always trying to take the next day and build upon what you did yesterday. And just constantly, my family was incredibly supportive. So I think my base came from them. I don't think I actually thought about it until you asked me, but yeah, I mean, having 2 successful parents in 2 very challenging fields of work, they set a really great example. My parents have been married almost 50 years now. So it's, they're just excellent role models for my sister and myself. And so, yeah, I would credit all of it to my family.
They've been go-getters, your family, you have as well. So when do you allow yourself to be at peace with what you're doing?
Oh, I'm at peace every day. I mean, there's it. I don't want it to come across like I'm never happy or satisfied or fulfilled. Like I had a great day at work today. Haven't been in the office in a lot of days because of the pandemic. I went to the office today. I met coworkers and colleagues that I had never met before. I'm at peace every night. I mean, I fall asleep in like 10 seconds when I put my head on the pillow. There's not a lot of thought racing around as to like, oh my God, I'm worried about tomorrow. Like, no, like I've had a great day. I'd say I'm pretty happy and satisfied in what I'm doing, which makes it really easy to get up every day and put in the long hours and grind. So, yeah, you could always want to do more. You might be frustrated about, X, Y, or Z, but, at the end of the day, I'm a happy person. So.
No question. A rising star too. Danielle Cranin is with us with NBC Sports. I'm Bryan Fenley. So I think that, and you said that your parents limited your screen time. I feel like you probably made up for that lack of screen time when you were at ESPN, considering all the televisions that you were around and playing when you worked in programming, and then you were a PA and all these different things. I'm always curious. And for those who have worked at ESPN, there's really a bond within the employees where they do sporting events together, like outside of the actual workplace, whether it's pickup basketball.
Sure.
Am I not mistaken, Danielle, but are you quite the bowler when it comes to ESPN? And you
went digging.
Some people when it comes to bowling, you've got quite the skill, I hear.
You went digging, Bryan. Good for you. Yeah, I was, yes, ESPN, first of all, ESPN was like another college life for me, right? Like the colleagues that I had at ESPN, those people have now become my lifelong friends. And, it's hard, you go back to, the mid 2000s when I was there, early 2000s, mid 2000s, and we sort of grew up together, right? So we played sports, like you said. I was on a softball team. There was flag football. There was pickup basketball. I think I even did volleyball at one point. But in my programming life and in my job, I got assigned to work on the PBA account, right? So I'd never been to a bowling event. I think I bowled when I was a kid, but I had never really been an avid bowler. And I was like, okay, like I'm gonna learn this sport. Like when I got put on NASCAR, I went and bought NASCAR for Dummies, and I read the book, and I learned about the origins of NASCAR and had, the family business that it is. So when I got put on bowling, I was like, all right, there's an ESPN bowling league. I'm gonna get myself in as a sub. And I think my average when I first started was like, I think it was under 100. It was like 95 or something. Like I was just happy to break 100 in a game. And then I got to tell my PBA contacts, like, I'm in a bowling league, and they're like, oh, you got to get a ball, and you got to get shoes and a bag. And I'm like, oh my goodness, there's all this stuff you have to do. And, there's a pretty good bowler on my team, Chris Rossi. Shout out to Chris Rossi. He attempts to make the US Open every year as an amateur. So, I'm always highly supportive of Chris and his endeavors. But Chris was like, let me show you how to bowl. Let me teach you how to bowl. And I think I got my average up to 185 by the time I left the league, and was one of the top female bowlers, or top 3 female bowlers every season. And it became competitive, and it became something that, like, that's what I did Tuesday nights. I had a bowling league. I went with a bunch of my colleagues. We had a great time. We would go in the snow. We'd go in the rain. It was, I think we did 30 weeks or something a year of bowling, but, started entering into competitions myself with Chris. He'd be like, oh, there's this competition this week. Do you want to go do it? Yeah, sure. Let's do it. It's fun. So yeah, got to be pretty good. Now I'm a quiet ringer, so I don't bowl as much as I used to, but when we go out with my friends and now, and I bring my own ball, they're like, you have your own ball? And I'm like, yeah, I have my own ball. What of it? I'm still going to out-bowl everybody here. So yeah, bit of a bowler, but good for you for digging that one up.
Well, I found this, and they even gave a score. Like,
oh, no.
You were 199. That's really solid. You're right at the 200 level. You beat Roger Raymond, 199 to 124. I can't believe I found this, to advance to the finals. Did you got to the finals? Do you remember how that final went?
I think I lost. Pretty sure I lost in the final. There's no thinking. I know I lost in the final, but yeah, no, it was a fun time. I did have my high game. I think I was like a 280. I had like, opened in the first frame and then threw 8 straight strikes. And then I think I didn't throw a strike for my first ball in the 10th, and then I spared and I threw a strike, and it like came out to something in the 280s or something like that. I was told there'd be no math, so I'm not quite. Don't hold it.
One of the many accomplishments that you've been a part of. And then, so you're at ESPN and already working in the tennis space. And then the USTA becomes sort of your focal point and focus. When you scout out talent, how soon do you know that this person would work? Or as far as people who you're looking to bring on when you were at that tennis space?
So honor talent for me was always a fun challenge, right? So as you know, we grew from televising 3 courts to 5 courts to 7 courts to every court, and finding announcers to provide voice across all those different courts that's a challenge. It's a lot of people, right? Because tennis, untimed sport, you could be there 11 a.m. and you're there until last ball, and if you've got 2, 3, 4 matches a day on a court that you then have to find announcers for. So for me, being just a sports fanatic, I watch a ton of sports. So I knew that hockey announcers can handle challenging names, player names, specifically Eastern European and non-American sounding names. So focused in, and it's the off season for hockey. So that was an easy area for me to go and start talking to hockey announcers to say like, hey, do you know tennis? Do you like tennis? Would you be interested in working the US Open? And then like digging a little bit deeper into the tennis field also, right? So like writers who know the sport inside and out, know the players inside and out, have that comfort and a familiarity with the game and the venue. And I think the nice part about what I was doing at the USTA was, nobody needed to be on camera. So there was a comfort level where come as, my selling point, come as comfortable as you are. You don't need to worry about looking good on camera. You just need to worry about sounding good. And if you know the subject matter and you know how to call sports in general, like, made sure I paired veterans with potential newbies, and just taking a risk on people. You sort of get a feeling from them in conversation, like, can you hold a conversation? Can you talk shop? Like, can you talk to me about tennis? Can you explain to me why 30 all might be more important than deuce? Can you explain to me why taking the ball early and taking the ball up the line matters to the top level players? So you're being proactive in the point as opposed to reactive. And then for play-by-play folks, like, how do you set your analyst up, right? Because most of our analysts were either former players, former coaches, or current coaches. We did we have a lot of people on air who are still actively coaching folks. So how do you set someone up to have a conversation? Because like I said, an untimed sport, you could be talking to the person sitting next to you for 3, 4 hours, 5 hours, depending on how long a tennis match goes. So how do you build a rapport, and how do you make it feel like a conversation that people just want to listen to? That was key for me, because X's and O's, like, anybody can read a stat sheet. But are you comfortable talking for long periods of time, potentially with challenging names in a sport where it's not action packed? A tennis point, you can let it breathe a little bit. You can sit back and let the play unfold in front of you. So it was fun. It was fun finding, new voices. It was fun finding, voices from other sports, that got into tennis and found out that they really loved doing tennis, and they started doing more tennis at other events with other organizers. And that for me was probably one of the most fulfilling parts of my job at the USTA was, hearing a voice pop up in another tennis event and be like, oh, I helped get that person going. And so thrilled when announcers would have success at other events. So yeah, it was a fun challenge. I'll say that.
To take a tennis term, you had a certain pattern that you played. in the way in which you might have envisioned your career to go. So yeah. So how much of what you foresaw when you were coming out of Quinnipiac, how close were you to what you thought would happen from ESPN to USTA and to now NBC, and sort of looking at the pattern you thought you were going to play to take a tennis term and the pattern in which you ended up taking?
I'm so far off course from where I thought I was going. I think when I was 14 years old, I wanted to be like the next Linda Cohn, right? Like I wanted to be doing Sports Center, sitting in the chair. Realized I was better off behind the scenes. Realized I was better off, behind the camera, if you will. And I guess once I left ESPN and joined, I thought I was going to be a lifer at ESPN, and really. I think in the last 2 years of my career at ESPN, it was more of, all right, this is an industry I want to be in. Like, let's have an open mind as to where it could go. I stopped having illusions as to where that was. When I got to the USTA, we were a team of two. That team, I think, more than doubled in my 8 years there. From a full-time staff perspective, I know our operational team at the US Open, I think it grew from a core staff of 6 to more than double that, and then the freelancers that we were hiring, I think, was nearly 150 people deep, by the time I was done. I wasn't in production, right? I had been around production my whole life at ESPN. I did a lot of going and sitting with colleagues and learning what they do, and asking a ton of questions. And I try to be the lowest common denominator in every conversation, where I don't know enough to be able to do the job, but I wanted to learn about the job that somebody else was doing, so that if I ever needed to talk about that role, I'm not a graphics operator, but I know what a graphics operator needs to get their job done. So I sort of pivoted. I pivoted from a acquisitions and scheduling role into a production role at the USTA, which allowed me to learn a lot about below the line production, technical operations, crewing and staffing. I learned all about, media management, building an asset management system. And then when I went back when I went to NBC from the USTA, I went back to my programming roots. So I was on our regional sports network side of the business, which was great to learn. I did national. Now I'm doing local regional deals and programming deals. Worked for John Sabakin, who's just a gem of a human. And, John's really the one who sort of set me up to say, like, hey, why don't you meet our betting team? Him and Ted Greggs, they set me up with Nicolina O'Rourke and her team. And obviously I'm a little bit of a gambler myself.
Ooh, well.
I've become a lot of bit of a gambler now in my current role. And it was just sort of reading the tea leaves as to where the industry is going, right? Like, sports betting is going to be a $40 billion industry in the next 5 years. The state of New Jersey took $1.1 billion in the month of September. So this is real money. This is where, we're heading in our industry in a good way, right? And so at NBC, we're really focusing on, telling stories through predictive data and telling stories through, predictive outcomes, as opposed to talking about heavy betting. It's more of, the Bulls tonight are favored by 3.5 over Dallas, and they're in Dallas. And why is that? And let's talk about why the Bulls are having success so early in the season, and talking about it from that perspective, as opposed to, do I want to get 3.5 or do I want to get 4 points? And how much is the vig on? Like, we're not talking that kind of betting. We're talking, the Bulls are good, and here's why they're good, and this is what the line is. And do we think that the Bulls are good to win by 4? And I've just placed a bet, right? We've just talked through a bet, and you didn't realize we were talking through a bet. So when you asked me, like, did I see that when I was at Quinnipiac? No, I didn't see myself. If you had said that I was going to be talking about the Bulls beating Dallas tonight, no, I would not have bet on that. But it's been an interesting, hey, let's see where our industry is going. Let's see where I can go in it, right? Where's the opportunity for growth? Where's the opportunity to continue to learn and innovate and advance? And so I knew I would do that. I just didn't know it would take me here.
Danielle Cranin is with us. I'm Bryan Fenley. I think at the bottom of all of this, and the common denominator here for you, Danielle, is that no matter what we have seen here is you have this insatiable thirst and desire to learn, and how that has been sort of like your finest asset as you've been trudging and expanding your reach in the business. So like when people think of you, that is the first thing I think of. And I think that comes across in this conversation. My final question for you is, with everything you've done, and we were talking about gambling, and in a way to play off that, you've had to bet on yourself in taking on new challenges and learning things that maybe you didn't know before, and then you take them on and all of a sudden you thrive. What are you most proud about when you reflect upon what you've done so far?
Wow, it's a good question. I think I'm most proud of, I've stayed true to myself. A lot of people could get hung up on what's my title, how much money do I make, how many people report to me, the measuring sticks, if you will, in the business world. And I've always shown up. I've worked really hard. I've done the best that I could at my job. For me, the biggest compliment is, when someone talks about you, is, oh, wow, she's really good at her job, right? She's really good at what she does. And I've never strayed from that. I've never allowed myself to get caught up in, the office politics of, what's your title? What do you make? Like, yes, it's all important, right? Because we have bills to pay and things of that nature. But did I do my job as best as I could? Right? Am I a good colleague? Am I a good employee to my company? Am I helping the brand of my company? It's not drinking the Kool-Aid. I don't want anybody to get confused, because I'm the first one to tell you that Kool-Aid is rancid and we should throw it down the drain. It's, did I do the best I could at what I was asked to do? Did I go above and beyond? Did I anticipate? Did I meet my own expectations? Because if I'm meeting my own expectations, like I said early on, I'm going to meet everyone else's, because no one's going to have higher expectations for me than me. So I think I've stayed pretty true to myself in doing that. And I've sort of let that be my own guidepost and my own measuring stick. Like if I'm satisfied and I'm proud of the work that I'm doing, then I know that others are going to find value in that. And I haven't strayed from that my entire almost 20-year career. So
what an inspiring encapsulation that is of you, the fabric of who you are. And no wonder people enjoy working with you. I think that one of the other big themes of this conversation was how good you are in relationship building, and how that has been so important to your success. And over the course of your career, your network has expanded, and so has your brain power to learn more about this business than probably you thought was humanly possible when you were, going back to how we started, that field hockey player in college. Danielle Cranin, this was so much fun with NBC Sports. I'm Bryan Fenley. Thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed this.
Thanks for having me. I truly enjoyed it.